Okay, I'm back with installment 2 of our drawing of fruit. The camera shut down on me and I didn't realize it, so I was drawing away and finishing up the top of this fruit and putting in the stem while the camera was off. So let me return to that. In the top of the first apple, I did not do any drawing with the pencil. I picked up graphite off of the drawing itself, these dark areas that I put in, and then moved it up onto the top of the fruit. So I was letting this tortillon, which is picking up graphite, do a lot of the mark making for me. So you can see that it's getting a shade darker up there. So that was not done with the pencil. However, where the stem enters the apple, I did use the pencil in there, and this is kind of an ellipse-like shape. So pencil was used in there. Then to the right-hand side of the stem of the apple, I put a lot of pressure behind the pencil to get that stem pretty deep in value. Let's move over to the second apple, second object in our composition here. Make note of the fact that this is your darkest, one of your darkest darks in here, and as this dark overlaps this apple, this is slightly lighter because we still have light hitting this side of the apple. So we're going from light to dark in a left to right direction on the second apple. So as we did with the first apple, we're going to start on the side that is the darkest. I'm going to lay the pencil down on its side so that I get quick coverage, and as I mentioned earlier, hopefully this way I will not be scoring the paper very much, and I'm moving this pencil in sort of a tight circular direction, mark making, running up along my contour, and we'll build these darks a little at a time again. And the reason for that is that we don't want to leave an indentation or an impression in the paper from the point of the pencil. So looking a little like that, and we'll stop to burnish some, moving out away from where I made the marks, but burnishing over the marks, over that value. And we'll keep deepening this value. And this value runs probably 2/3 of the face of that apple is in deep value. So let's move it out here some. And we'll keep leaving more and more graphite on the paper until we get the deep value that we're looking for. I'm going to have to shift out of that drawing hold into a detail hold on the pencil to go right up to the contour of this apple, the edge over here. That's where it is the darkest dark. I'm trying to move as quickly as I can to keep these videos as short as we can keep them here. So. Got a pretty dark area right up in there on the top. And I'm darkening, and I am shifting the direction of these marks from time to time so that I don't establish a single mark direction on the surface of the paper. Time to do a little more burnishing here, putting a lot of pressure behind this. And while I have all of this graphite on the edge of the burnishing tool, we'll take it on out into some other areas of the apple, see how much drawing we can do with the burnishing tool, how much of a value we can leave out there with just the use of the burnishing tool at this point. Still need some deeper areas, I believe, right in here. So we'll keep darkening this a little. Still don't think I'm going to go over into these middle values of the apple with the pencil itself. I'm going to try to keep using that burnishing tool for that. Let's see how that works out. I've switched cameras, so I don't know how long this camera is going to go for me here. I don't know how many minutes of video I have with this camera. Given that's the case, I want to be sure that you understand how to deal with this area where the stem enters the apple. I'm avoiding the stem right at the moment with the pencil. Pretty deep value right in there. And we'll burnish that out a little bit. And we can set the dark side of the stem out on it as well. I still don't believe I'm quite as dark as I can go over here, so I'm going to go a little darker in this area. I believe I am going to need a little more graphite off the pencil right in here. The darker you go in the shadowed areas, the more impact this drawing is going to have. So we want to establish very rich, deep value on the right hand side of this apple. and on the face of the apple. Trying to get this to go as dark as I can get it to go over here on the right hand side. So that's going to contribute to the photographic appeal of this, photographic look of this. So I'm going to go as dark as we can go over here. Let's do a little more burnishing, and we'll push it out a little bit from where I've drawn. Beginning to look like a second apple, I think. Push it just a little more. Not a lot, but I don't think it's going to go a whole lot deeper than this. I think I'm about to the point in terms of the value that this pencil, that we're going to get out of this pencil. So strengthen this just a little more. And maybe some of this cast shadow in here from the stem of the apple. And more burnishing. Darker right in there. Alright, to the eraser for a moment. I've lost some of my highlights because I didn't worry much about them because I know I can put them back in with an eraser later. We'll clean up the edges a little bit of the apples, clean up the contour some. And then drop in with one of the corners of the eraser. We'll make a few marks that are going to be highlight marks. Highlight there. Got a strong highlight right in here. Very strong highlight right in there. A little bit of a highlight down in here. So I'm not going to erase all the way down to the paper here, to the white of the paper. Over here I have a very strong highlight that is right in there. So let's get that strong highlight in. A little more highlight there, a little more highlight right in there. Okay. Almost through this thing. We have some cast shadows that we need to place in. I think it might be wise initially to see what kind of value you can get out of just the end of the drawing stump initially. Not going to be enough. So I'm going to have to place in some of that value penciled on its side here. The shadow is really pretty deep right in here, right where it comes underneath the apple. That's a pretty strong, deep value. And that value is pretty strong out here. And it is a long shadow, as we have a light source that's low, so we have a pretty long shadow out here. Deep underneath the apple. Start moving some of that out away with the burnishing tool. I need a little more graphite. These shadows are an ellipse as well. Burnish a little more. Not bad. Still might like to see that a little bit darker right in there, so let's do that. Da Vinci claimed that shadows are darker where they come in direct contact with the object that is casting the shadow, and then they get somewhat lighter as they move away. That's not always the case, but often it is the case. So he's not incorrect, but it doesn't hold true for every situation. Just about got this thing in hand. And same situation for the cast shadow from this apple running out at an ellipse, but this direction. And its deepest, darkest values are right up against the apple. mark making. Pencil seems to be in need of a little sharpening, I think, but let's see if I can use it a few more minutes here. Still need this a little deeper. Do a little burnishing at this point to see what I have. Go down just a little darker with this shadow here, so get it a little bit darker. Kind of let it lighten out some as it moves away from the apple. We'll pay homage to Leonardo da Vinci and what he thought happened. So. I'm working on the floor again, and because I knew that this burnishing tool is going to take a lot of pressure behind it. I don't know at this point whether you'll be working on the tables in the art department, the drafting tables, or if you'll be working on the floor in your room or apartment or whatever. Hard to say. All right, I think other than just a little cleaning up here, that we have these pretty well in hand. This point is a finishing stage, or what I would call a polishing stage in it, meaning that you're just kind of checking this out to see if there are small little things that you might want to do to it to strengthen it. Nothing major at this point. If you thought that a contour needed strengthening, then this would be the time to do it. If you believe that an area needs darkening, or maybe an area needs to be a little lighter, you can lighten a little bit by punching at the drawing with the eraser. You're not really erasing everything, but just kind of punching down on it, and you'll start to pick up some of the graphite. Light erasing, not trying to get down to the white of the paper at this point. A bit of a strong highlight right in there that I missed. Other than that, I think it's cleaning up time. So I'll go around and clean up the contours some. I've got a little messiness out there on the contours, but not too bad. think that at this point we have 2 apples sitting on the ground playing. And looks pretty good to me, so we were going to let it stand at that. Indicate a little bit of linear work in here. Apples have that kind of turn into the core. That should be a hard edge. I think these will pass as apples. And I think that's acceptable. Looks pretty good. And before we call it quits here, these pencils are graphite, a very soft form of graphite, meaning basically that they don't have a lot of wax in them. So just word of caution about them. Careful not to drop them onto the floor, because sometimes dropping them onto the floor causes the graphite to break up inside the wooden part of the pencil, and you'll go through the frustration of every time you go to sharpen it. You have a handheld sharpener, I think. Every time you get to sharpen it, that the points break, off. So try not to drop it onto the floor. This is all good. You can put your name on it now. And if you want, you could establish a horizon line in it. I don't particularly think it's necessary in this drawing, because we're basically trying to photorealistically illustrate 2 apples, and it won't matter if it comes off as an illustration. So let's let it pass at that. I overlooked a shadow dropping off of this apple's stem, so I'm going to put that in. Little cast shadow. I got the cast shadow in over here, but left it out over here. All right, that's it. Best of luck.